Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and I would like to welcome you to episode 135 of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. Today, I have with me my good friend Kevin Brady. Kevin is an expert on the process of sales, and I thought it would be interesting to look at the sales process or sales cycle as Kevin breaks it down in the context of how a compliance officer might be able to use some of these techniques to communicate compliance to the troops out in the field. The episode comes in at just over 21 minutes, and it really provides some different ways to look at some communication concepts that compliance officers need to utilize. I hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you.
Compliance and Ethics Report. Today, I'm really pleased to have with me my good friend Kevin Brady. Kevin and I worked together many years ago at a company called Landmark Graphics. Then we went our separate ways, and we've had the opportunity to do a couple of projects since that time. But recently, Kevin has opened up a new consulting business that I thought was really interesting and had some really interesting concepts for the compliance practitioner. And although it's not in the compliance field, I asked Kevin if he would come on the podcast and tell us a little bit about it and see how we might be able to adapt it for use in compliance. So with that rather long introduction, Kevin, welcome. I really appreciate you taking that time of this day to visit with us.
Thank you, Don. It's good to be here.
Kevin, the name of your company is Highway 9, so I first have to ask, why that name?
So, Tom, I love Bruce Springsteen. He's, of course, from New Jersey. Highway 9 is a highway that runs north and south through New Jersey, and Bruce Springsteen sings about it in the song Born to Run. So I was looking for something a little bit different that had a little bit of personal connection, and that's how the name Highway 9 came about.
Kevin, you and I have worked together on a couple of, as I mentioned, we both worked at Landmark Graphics, which is a software company, and then we worked on some software-related projects, but you actually had a much broader remit in terms of your professional career. Could you tell us about some of the things you've done?
Yeah, certainly. So, Tom, I have a degree in geology from LSU in Baton Rouge, and then I started out working as a field engineer running logging tools and directional drilling equipment with a company called Sperry Sun, which is now part of Halliburton. After a few years of that, I moved into a project management position in the R&D group, developing downhole drilling tools. And at the same time, I was working on a marketing degree from the University of Houston. So I eventually moved into various marketing positions at Halliburton, left Halliburton and went to a few other companies, moved into sales. But in sales, I always had responsibility for both sales and marketing, and worked hard to make the two departments act and think as one. So, a lot of times sales and marketing are connected very closely in their objectives within companies, but strangely they often don't work together very well. So my attitude and approach as I was working for smaller companies leading up to launching Highway 9 was to find a way for sales and marketing to work better with common objectives.
And Kevin, the thing that really intrigued me when I took a look at your website and had the opportunity to have you describe this to me was the process. And you talked about sales as process. You train people on sales, the process of sales. You help companies embed that process. And in many ways, compliance is a process. So I thought it might be interesting for the compliance practitioner to explore the process that you advocate, and I think it's called Path to Closure, but if you could just walk us through that.
Yeah, sure. So in three small companies that I worked for, and some of the ones I worked with you on, Tom, two software and one that manufactured wellhead equipment, I took companies that either had no sales process or a very immature sales process, and by implementing systems of discipline, process, and accountability, put together measures that drove increases in sales performance. So my mission with Highway 9 was to replicate that process and those services for other companies, particularly the small oil and gas service companies is my early focus, with methods and training that help them increase the quality of incoming sales leads, and then work with the sales teams directly to further the opportunities and hopefully close the deals. So the Path to Closure process, Tom, has four steps. One is attract prospects. The second is qualify and develop leads. And then what I call manage the red zone, and then close the order. And the process is split between online initiatives through website and social channels, and then a customer interface directly through the sales team. So let's break that down a little bit. So if you look at Attract, for instance, my mission is to help companies create a web-based demand strategy that develops meaningful content and coupling that with keyword selection and page optimization. And you say, well, there's many companies that try to do the same thing. So what's different about the path to closure and what's different about Highway 9? Well, using these web automation techniques, we provide them with relevant information to build relationships with their ideal customers. And it's important for these customers or these prospects to understand, where they are in the buying cycle and when it's time for the sales team to engage. So many companies do a good job of generating sales leads, but sometimes their sales teams follow up too quickly for us, and the prospects are not at that point where they're ready to buy. So by using
Can I stop you there, Kevin?
Yeah, sure.
Because you said something about that really intrigued me, and I tried to get it down in a note, but it was building a relationship.
Right.
How does a company who has a product or service actually build a relationship with someone through social media?
Right. So I like to think along the line of building expert communities, Tom, and some of that's similar to what you do in your FCPA compliance and ethics blog. You've created credibility around you being an expert in FCPA compliance and ethics. So what I try to do with these companies is, especially engineers, a lot of this is an engineer-to-engineer type sale. So when you establish yourself as an expert on the topic and a credible source, and my method works the same way. So by pushing out content about a company's products and services that's relevant to their target customers, they can build out a following that results in better traffic to the website, more qualified sales leads, and then you can high-grade those opportunities for direct sales involvement. The key is that the content has to be relevant and from a trustworthy source. It can't be a sales pitch or come across as one.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So I think you were at the quality and lead development.
Yeah. So once you've got high-graded good leads coming into the website, we move into what I call manage the red zone, which is really where my experience and track record in sales comes across, because I can work with these sales teams to help them high-grade these opportunities by implementing the sales discipline and process. So that's really designed to focus on the customers that are ready to buy and weed out the ones that are not. And then, of course, we move into closing the deal. This is a typical sales process, whether you're using Miller Hyman, Dale Carnegie, spin selling, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that you have a process that you follow every time so that you can have proven techniques to gain customer commitment, increase your closure rate, improve the deal size, shorten the buying cycle, all that stuff, right?
How do you show or demonstrate accountability in each of these steps?
A lot of it goes down to quota management and setting goals and objectives with a sales team. So you can take a sales team that has a pipeline or a forecast, for instance, that doesn't seem, you can go into a company and say, well, how's your sales pipeline? They say, well, we've got a pretty strong pipeline. Well, what's your closure rate? Well, we're not doing very good on our closure rate. Well, maybe your pipeline is not as healthy as you think it should be. So putting in, techniques and processes that help the sales team increase the quality of their pipeline, making them accountable for the information they're entering, making sure they're following the process that you documented every time, will result in more confidence in that sales pipeline, more sales productivity, and at the end of the day, the faster sales cycle and higher revenue growth.
I'm looking at your website while we're doing this podcast, and unfortunately, this is audio only, so our listeners are not seeing this. But it's almost an inverted cone, the process as it's illustrated. And what's intriguing me though is on the Attract prospects, of course, is the largest, and it narrows down as the cycle goes through its normal life cycle. But I'm really intrigued by how you would determine a potential prospect, and then building that trusting relationship. You talked about providing content and providing, if not expert content, useful content. How can you determine the type of content that would attract a prospect that would lead them into additional steps in the cycle to the actual becoming a customer?
Right. So if you look at that inverted cone, and that's a familiar sales funnel, what I found is that, in the 4 steps there, 2 of them are the most important. One is at the bottom, closing the deal. So that's what sales guys are measured on, deal closure. The other one that's second most important is the opportunities of the prospects coming into the top of the funnel. And this is generally where sales guys have a hard time, is attracting enough prospects to have a strong enough pipeline is that they kind of sort themselves out through the process to produce deal closure at the bottom. So what I've done with my fast to closure process is taken that prospecting and that qualifying stage and put the emphasis on web marketing to help drive that prospecting. And then it relies on the salesperson with direct sales to manage the red zone and to close the order. So let's give an example. So I had a company a few months ago, Tom, that we were doing a marketing automation program through, and we had pushed out a piece of content about some wellhead controllers, some tips to running wellhead controllers. And we had pushed that out to a group of production engineers. Some of those we had in a contact database. Some of them we had gathered through LinkedIn. But we felt that they were a pretty targeted group. So out of that, we had visits to the website. And we had one person in particular that over the time period of about a month came back to the website 3 or 4 times. And we could tell that because of the content management platform that we were using. So he eventually filled out a quote form on the site, which triggered a follow-up call from a salesperson, and ultimately delivered a sale. So that's like a textbook example of how the system would work. Now, it doesn't work for every person we reach out to, but that in particular is somebody that was a new customer for this client that they'd never seen before and probably wouldn't have made a sale to. But through the LinkedIn content blogging, we're able to find him, bring him in, and convert it into a sale.
Kevin, if I could turn now to some of the other services that you offer. I guess maybe that's not the right way to talk about it. But the right way might be, what does a company or individual need to look at in terms of a market study, a competitive analysis, or even a pricing study?
Right. So, yeah, not every client can move right into executing a website rebuild and the path to closure process. They're at different stages in their marketing program. Some of them come to me and say, hey, we need a new logo. We need some sales collateral. So, of course, I have resources to do that. My mission is not to be a full-service marketing agency, but through partnerships and network of professionals that I have, we can deliver different services. So when we look at starting a program with a client, a lot of times they do want to start earlier on. We need to figure out what our position is, what our competitive position is. So I can do some strategy work for them. We can do some branding work. We can put together competitive analysis. But all that is designed to help them improve their marketing and improve their sales, and it feeds back into the website development for the path to closure. A lot of them are introducing new products, so they need some confirmation about how they're going to price them. So, one of my services is to help them understand how customers want to buy, what they're used to paying for, what kind of value do the services they provide and deliver. So then we can come up with information that's covered in that market study and build a pricing strategy for their product.
How would you go about looking at or performing some kind of competitive analysis, and why is that important for a company in the sales process?
Right. So I look at competitive analysis in 2 regards. One is from a technical standpoint, and one is from a marketing standpoint. So what's most important to my process is understanding what competitors do you have for that type of product, and how are they presenting themselves to the marketplace? So things we would look at is, what does their website look like? What kind of value are they trying to provide their customers? How are they positioning that product? What features and benefits are they rolling out? As you can imagine, Tom, a lot of the stuff in the oil field is very product-focused, very engineering-heavy. There's a lot of technical details a lot of times in sales collateral and websites. What I try to do is help customers turn this around into a solutions matrix where what their end users are seeing is what the benefit is it's going to provide to them. We can say that, for instance, it works to a pressure of, say, 30,000 psi. But what does that enable a customer to do? Well, in the drilling world, that means he can drill down to depths that perhaps he couldn't drill to before. So that's the kind of things that we like to put in the materials that we push out as opposed to just technical elements.
And then the other question I had, or actually area that you suggested companies look at, is the customer profiles.
Right.
And in thinking through everything you shared with us here, I'm beginning to wonder, is the customer profile one of the most important pieces of information?
Yeah, that's a good point, Tom. I think it is, because salespeople, in my experience, waste a lot of time focusing on customers or target customers that either that aren't the right spot in the buying cycle, or don't have an interest in their products for whatever reason. So it's very important to be able to understand, what products you have, what services you deliver, what customers are like for those, and focus on those and those only. And we go back to high grading. That once you do that, you can greatly increase the success rate of your sales efforts, and by focusing on those customers that are most likely to buy. I mean, think about, Tom, if you just bought a car, for instance, and somebody calls you up 2 months later and says, "Hey, would you like to buy a car?" It's like, well, no, I just bought a car. Well, what if 4 or 5 years later you get a call and somebody says, "Hey, you want to buy a car?" And you're thinking, well, my car's got 100,000 miles on it now. Yeah, I've been thinking about that. Well, that's what some of this ideal customer profile is ready to do, is identify companies that are in the right stage of the buying cycle and fit your target so that you can have better success with them. And then, and this is hard for a lot of clients to do, is walk away or not focus on customers that are going to be the least likely to produce sales.
You're right. That is extremely hard to do.
Yeah.
We both work and play in the energy space quite a bit, and obviously in Houston, the price of oil is a major topic of concern. Mm-hmm. But one of the things I've been looking at is what's going to happen to non-revenue generating departments in energy corporations, right, particularly compliance functions. One of my thoughts is that if there's actually a downturn in headcount, meaning people get laid off, does that provide an opportunity for either improvement or consolidation of processes, or even perhaps implementation of technical solutions, technological-based solutions to help make the process more efficient? Have you started to see any of that?
Yeah, I have seen some of that. So I've got a customer, for instance, that is trying to launch a new software. It's an internal management software which helps improve efficiency and internal operations. So for companies now that are still financially in good shape, really, they're starting to look at things like that. So what we were hearing a year ago, Tom, was that, this solution looks good, but we're just so busy right now. We're fighting fires every day and barely stay afloat. Now what we're hearing is some of these companies are actually taking a breather, right? They're stepping back and saying, okay, we know the market's going to be down. We're prepared for that, but it's time that we now have time to focus on things that are going to make us a better company once the market takes off again. And I'm starting to hear some of that. So starting about in a few months ago, December, January, the price of oil was still going down quite a bit. There was a lot of uncertainty. People basically had everything on hold. I think now is the price. I'm not sure if it's completely stabilized, but it feels like it's getting a little bit more stable, that at least people can set a budget around what the price of oil is going to be, and then figure out how they can make their companies better for the upturn that's going to come soon.
Well, Kevin, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time to visit, but I did want to ask a couple of things. One, could you give everyone your website? And number two, if anyone wanted to contact you to follow up on anything you've talked about, could you give them some contact information?
Sure. My website address for Highway 9 Consulting is hwy9sms.com, and the SMS stands for Sales and Marketing Solutions. My email address is kbrady@hws9sms.com, and my phone number is 713-202-4267.
Well, Kevin, I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with me. You've really given me a lot to think about, and frankly, I think we're going to have to continue this discussion about the processes and systems you've described about sales, really more around compliance. So thank you very much for a very enlightening session.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Okay.